Cool. So thanks very much, Adrian. I'm hoping we can keep this presentation as interactive as is possible on a virtual side. It might not help you guys, but it definitely helps me. It's nice to speak to people and not to screens. But today I'll have to do screens and many of them. So yeah, I'm having a look who's joining in. I'm seeing there's a whole lot of people from around the world. I've got some fellow South Africans here. I see there's one or two online. Christiane, I see there. I see Michelle was saying hi. Nice to see you again. I saw Rob here, Emily here. So I think we've got a bit of the world here, and I even see my colleague Max is online here. So we're attracting quite a few people, which is quite nice to see. So things are very different in the business analysis world to what they were 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, and 10 years ago. And you know, Adrian mentioned in the beginning that we've known each other for a while. I've obviously known him better because I know the exact date and time we met, which was 2014 at the BBC conference. And you know, when we spoke at that conference, things were fundamentally different. I mean, we couldn't imagine the world that we're in right now. We couldn't imagine this AI revolution that's in. We couldn't imagine that the profession would be challenged as much as it is at the moment. And challenge is what I would call where we are at the moment. As a profession, I think we're sitting in this impasse at the moment where, you know, we've got this AI world in there, and we've got AI that can do a whole lot of things for us, and we're trying to balance vision and value. So vision being where we want to go. We know what the power of all the technology out there is. But at the moment, many AI projects, specifically AI projects, are failing. And I mean, there's stats as much as 80% of projects that delve into AI don't reach production. So they just wasted money. And maybe let's just see so that I can know how much rubbish I can talk today. Hands up. I think you guys can do hands up in the chat. Hands up for the people in the room that have some exposure to AI. They know what AI is. Let's start with that. Okay, let me give it a few seconds here. We either got 7 people that are only 7 people listening, or 7 people that know. But there's a few people. And how many of you would you say, you know, have a moderate exposure? You've played with AI, using AI to maybe write requirements or help you do some research? How many of you are doing that? A few less. Okay, decent amount. And then how many of you are right in the trenches of AI? You're not only using AI to deliver your work, but you're also building projects that deliver AI solutions. 2 people. And to me, it looks like three people. And to me, that's always interesting to say, because at the moment, I read stats that are saying that as few as 15% of companies aren't investing in AI at the moment, which means that's a huge amount of companies that are diving into AI. And you know, with all this tech, sometimes I wonder if we're actually adding value. You see these innovations, guys are throwing money at the problem, and they're going to say, guys, let's go do AI. And we go out there and we create this really crazy processes that uses AI. And then at the end of it, you look and you're like, yeah, it's cool, but do we really need it? Are we solving the right thing? Or are we just throwing new technology at a problem? And you're actually seeing a trend in the industry at the moment where some companies are sort of pulling back on their AI spend. So I'll use a couple of examples. Zillow, which is a home loans company, they heavily used AI, and what they went and did is they built algorithms that sort of predict the value of properties. But they found out very late that their home loans valuation software was overestimating the valuation by more than 25%. And that led to mass layoffs at the company. And the only way I can think of it is because people are rushing things. They're just diving into it. It's like, we need AI. I don't care why, but we just need it. Let's get it in. Let's do it. Let's build it. Let's get it out there. It must be here tomorrow. It can't wait. And it's a scary thought, because we haven't really got our hands around the tech yet. Things move very quickly in this new world, and we can't keep up, because business doesn't want us to go and do a business case and a five-page BRS and write every, the analysis you could take as long as you want. They want us to go really quickly into it and build these solutions very, very quickly, which leads to problems. And you're seeing many of them. I think everyone should be aware of the Amazon issue. So with Amazon, what ended up happening was Amazon used AI to determine their new hires. So they had AI screen CVs. And they were screening CVs based on historical data. And what ended up happening was that because there was bias in the previous hires, so there were a lot of men being hired back in the day of a certain color, of a certain age, and a certain generation. It thought that based on the historical data set was the ultimate criteria, and therefore it applied that into the criteria that it gave to individuals of this company, and introduced prejudice. And all of a sudden, Amazon was in hot water and got a lot of trouble. We've also all been there with these chatbots, as great as they are. Like when you say you've got these phone call bots that will phone you, that.
Okay, I think we've
Use
possibly
cases.
lost you're back. We lost you temporarily there, Ryan, but you're back.
Ah,
Fantastic. We lost
so
probably about 10 seconds.
you lost all the bad stuff. Don't worry. I didn't say any.
Oh,
I
right,
didn't say
okay, good,
anything to do with those 10
good.
settings. Sorry, my internet's usually quite stable. I don't know what's going on there. Um, so I think what I was getting at is there's a lot of companies investing it, and there's a lot of rush into the AI space. And I was just getting at a lot of these chatbots we see, and you start interacting with these chatbots, and to be honest, they're not always great experiences. It sounds great that we can have an AI agent and we can speak to the agent, and we don't have to talk to a human because the agent can help us right now. Um, but they sometimes don't work. And Royal Bank of Scotland invested a lot of money in chatbots, and they reversed their strategy eventually because 90% of the scenarios just ended up going to a human anyway. And all it's going to do is it's going to create customer frustration. So I think because people are rushing to the finish line, it causes a lot of problems. And I mean, Emily's saying there she misses talking to humans, 100%. And it's just when you talk to these bots, they're good, and they even start saying and at the moment, but you just know they're not human. And the thing you don't want to do is frustrate your customers. Um, and then there's other examples. We were in BBC in about I think it was the last year's one or the year before, and I saw self-driving cars, and for me that was an absolute mind shift. I saw this car and I was like, that cannot be true. There cannot be a car driving on the road where there's no driver in it. And I think I followed in my car for a little while, trying to figure out what it was doing, and I was, being a good BA, just doing some testing over there and making sure that the car actually did what it said and cutting it off a little bit and seeing if it would handle. And it was really, really interesting. But there's this other side of it. There's this ethical side of things, and ethical AI has become quite a big trend. Just because your company can replace 500 people with AI doesn't mean they should. Do you really want a company where you're the only person and it's serving 1 million customers and there's only one staff member because the rest is all agents? So there's all these considerations coming. But just in case you thought this was an AI presentation, it is most certainly not. There's an AI focus to it, but I think the point I'm going to try to bring out in here is the role of the BA in this, and how do we actually balance the need to go and build all these new things with actual value that it adds at the end of the day. And then let's check my slides. Don't want to move now. I had a good laugh at this. At this point in time, you have companies that are absolutely willing to throw money. You have a problem and you want to get a business case for it. If it has the word AI in it, no business case needed. How much do you want? And we think this is jokes, but we've been into projects where we will beg to get money. And as soon as it's got AI in it, no more begging. Guys, here's money. Go do something about it. And the analyst in me says that that's a massive opportunity for us to make sure that that money that we get given to do AI activities is well spent. a lot of solutions in my mind don't need to be technologically advanced. Sometimes you don't need a database. Sometimes Excel works. It often works. So I think the big question is how's work changing? And for me personally, and for the team members that I work is fundamentally changing. How we do things is different. Previously, we had to write prompts. I mean, previously we wrote requirements. We handed that to a developer. A developer built that. Someone tested it. Now we're getting involved in prompt writing. We're getting involved in diving into projects where we bridging the gap of build and design. Where all of a sudden the BA is a little bit further into the technical side. And previously I can't code, so I can't develop. But now the code isn't necessarily code. It's words. And that brings new challenges. And I think, people say, oh, AI is great and it's good and it understands and you can just type what you want and just takes it back. But some of the fundamental business analysis techniques are even more important. And I know ambiguity is not a technique, but it's more a theory. Have you ever tried to type to a prompt and it been ambiguous in any way or form? In an enterprise scenario, if you have a prompt that you're typing an instruction to and you're ambiguous, one time it's going to go left and the next time it's going to go right. You actually need to be much better at it. And all of a sudden there's a new world where people feel a bit uncomfortable. I felt at a point in time, I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought I was in control. I'm in my field. I'm maybe not an expert, but I know what I'm doing. I can walk into a company. I know my stuff. All of a sudden, you're throwing something at us all where I don't really know what I'm doing, and no one really knows what they're doing. It's a new frontier, and now I need to be able to guide and help team members and get requirements and deliver them and get things signed off with compliance, where it's an AI agent that's doing things. It's a completely different world. And I'm going to introduce a bit of a case study, and I'm actually glad some of my colleagues on the call, because we've been working on a project in South Africa. Every now and again, every 3 to 5 years, we are required in South Africa to reconfirm our customers' data with them to make sure that we still have the latest information. We do that so that we can understand who our customers are, and we can ensure that we control money laundering in South Africa and beyond. And we really need to know. We need to know what work you do. We need to know what your industry that you work in, so we can understand that your transactions align with who you are and what you do. In order to do this, we've got to reach out to our customers and go, hey, please tell us this is correct. And if we don't do that, we're required to put holds on your accounts. That, as you can imagine, is quite stressful on customer experience. So we decided that we want to go invest in a new AI solution that would reach out to our customers on WhatsApp. In South Africa, WhatsApp is a very, very widely used platform. I do realize that elsewhere in the world it's maybe not as big a thing, but WhatsApp is massive in South Africa. And the interesting part about that is when you think about the requirements in the beginning, we have absolutely no idea how it's going to work. We don't know how the AI is going to respond to our customer. All of a sudden, we have to think of new requirements. So your non-functional requirements grow absolutely massively. We have to make sure that this thing that is talking to our customers doesn't swear at them. If they swear back at the agents, at this technology, that it doesn't take offense. We had to come up with so many test cases and use cases and scenarios to make sure this thing didn't go off the rails. And at one point in time, we as a team had a good laugh because the testers would send us a spreadsheet of all their test scenarios, but they put a password on it because they thought it was a bit sensitive, because you really have to get rude with the thing. You have to try every little thing, every idea that you can think of, and it's all in a Word document. So it was quite interesting. And then the second part that became quite interesting is, how do you handle the compliance side of things? So if we ask a customer, are you still a doctor? And they go, no, I walk dogs. How do we translate that into an occupation and use it? And how do we take that and convince our compliance teams that actually, if we get audited at any point in time, you're not going to be in trouble? Compliance can't go to the regulator and say, no, don't worry about it. AI said it's, therefore it's true. That just doesn't fly. So trying to convince our stakeholders that this is a good solution, where we can't tell them what this agent is doing behind the scenes. We just go and say, we're giving it, feeding it into a model. We'll train the model. We used all the words, the good words. And it was very, very interesting. So the world is changing. We had to do things we've never done before. We had to figure out things we've never done before. We were charting new territory. And I think the thing that sort of started scaring us, especially with like the Waymo cars and all these AI activities, is do we think that robots are going to take over eventually? And to be honest, I'm not sure. And I think anyone who has a solid answer to that question, I'm gonna go as far as possible and say you might be wrong, because none of us really know what is ahead. None of us really know what's happening, and we hope that it's not going to be the case. We hope that we're still going to be around. But I read a really interesting post by a friend, a colleague. We should all be quite aware of him, is Philippe. And he was talking. He posed a question which I thought really interesting. He said, in future, as VAs, we kind of think at the moment that we can use AI to help us with our analysis. So our stakeholders can give us some stuff and we can put it in AI and it can synthesize it really well and do nice pictures and diagrams and do some extra research for us. And that's all good and well, but he posed the question, what happens if the stakeholder didn't have to come to us to go to AI? What if they just went to AI directly? What happens if we no longer need it as the bridge between, and it's the worst analogy, I hate it ever being called the bridge between IT and technology, but in some instances you are. But what happens if your stakeholders no longer need you? They can do all they can get the business cases, they can write requirements without you, they can, what happens if they don't need developers anymore? And if they think that they can just write it in the thing and all of a sudden the application's there and it's working? And to me, and I fully go, I see some good comments here. AI is good for research. Don't want my BA's skills being replaced by AI. Yes, I don't either. And it's just this new world we live in where we need to rethink what we do and what value we add. Me personally, I don't have a grim outlook on things. I have a very good outlook on things. I think there's a massive opportunity for business analysis. I think now more than ever, we need good business analysis. And I think as long as we understand that we are not here to write a requirement, we're not here to write a requirement. We're here to guide business in the right direction. We have to be that point that people want to come to. They shouldn't be going, I want a business analyst. They should be going, I want Ryan, because Ryan will come help me solve my problems, and he'll make sure I solve them correctly, and he'll make sure they are worth solving in the first place. I said in the beginning, we've got a lot of examples where money's just thrown at problems, and sometimes you don't need to solve it. We sat in and I think I was saying to Adrian around this, we sat in a hackathon today. We ran a hackathon with our teams. It's the last day is tomorrow. And we had some tech experts from Microsoft around. And it was fascinating. The one thing that shocked me the most out of one of them, the hackathon was specifically aimed at AI. And the one team got a use case, and the Microsoft guy said something to me, said, yeah, but that one doesn't really need AI. And I thought, wow, that's a powerful statement, because just because you can doesn't mean you should. And it just made me think, and it was perfect timing for this presentation. Got to go to my screen again and click here. Everyone knows Microsoft, and I've just mentioned them and I've worked a lot with them. What we're seeing in the industry at the moment is Microsoft had a huge amount of layoffs. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. And in those layoffs, does anyone know what kind of individuals they laid off in the chat here? I said it's a very vibrant chat here. I wish I could keep up with all of it. Let's see if anyone's saying here. Maybe no one knows. So middle management were targeted in the Microsoft layoffs. And that's a trend we're seeing worldwide. And why? in many traditional organizations, you have your upper leadership, you have some middle management, and you have the people doing a lot of work on the ground. And you needed the middle management around to manage, and who else was going to approve leave and all of those things. But what we saw is that there was a trend going from people that are solely there to manage other people to Microsoft going, we don't need those people anymore, because those sort of tasks that can be replicated by technology are going to go away. So if you need leave, I mean, what is a leave approval process in essence? Your manager gets it. They look, they see what projects do you have on at the moment. They see, do you have available leave? Yes, you do. Okay, good. You're approved for leave. So that's where it started disappearing from, and that sort of made me rethink my value and what I'm here to do. Because if all I'm doing is these mundane tasks where I'm executing on something and not really adding actual value, or maybe enabling other people to add value, it's interesting to see how the companies are moving past all of that. Let me go. Sorry, it's very difficult with multiple screens. So let's look at a simple process of what management would do. You as an employee might request leave. Your manager gets that leave. They need to look at some systems. So they look at maybe some communications up and down. They need to go to the HR systems. They need to go to payroll to go and see a whole lot of things. Have I got leave? How long have I been here? A whole lot of stuff. Adrian, I'm hoping AI can solve my multiple screen problem, but maybe not today. Maybe some other day. Maybe it's just me overcomplicating my screen problem. Maybe you don't actually need 3 screens to work. I know it's a crazy idea, but maybe I only need the 1 screen to work. I like the lots of screens though. But then that manager has to go, there's underlying some data there, there's policies. So how many leave days can I take? What type of leave can I take? Are there any restrictions on when I can take my leave? What is the approval process? All of these things are all involved in that administrative burden. But now you've got AI in the picture. We can take that entire process. You can have a large language model, a small language model. You can do IDP that can look at documents. You can have other agentic solutions that are talking to you. And all of a sudden, what your manager does to do leave can just be replaced by an agent. And again, I mentioned ethical AI in the beginning. I don't think AI, I hope AI is not going to go away just replacing people. But really what this makes me think is, what is the job of management? Is a manager's job to approve leave, to do the administrative burdens, to manage your career, to handle your training, to do budgets? No. So Petra's manager recently quit. So I just wonder what you did to them, Petra. Hopefully you didn't scare them. But it's these kind of things where you do a task every single day, and it can be replicated. Those are unnecessary tasks. And that, I believe, is where AI can play a huge role. If I get up every day and I do something very specific, and it's replicatable, why wouldn't I try and automate that so that it's out of my way and I can focus on not writing the document that needs to evidence the requirements that I've spent the last 3 months gathering, but rather spend more time gathering, understanding the problems. If I don't have to spend all the time writing the documents, or a very funny comment Adrian once said, and I know we've all been there, is, when you have your Visio diagrams and there's one skew line and you have to zoom in to make sure that line is 100% straight. We've all been there, we've all done that. But that takes time. Hopefully there's AI, Adrian's probably got it already, AI that makes his Visio diagram straight so that he doesn't have to worry about all those skew lines all over the page. But those are the things that frustrate you. Even PowerPoint. PowerPoint is my least favorite application in the world, because I think I spend half the time trying to make it look decent, and only 1/10 of the time on the content that goes in. So then I kind of say, what must we do to change? What do we see change to be useful in the future world? And essentially, it's get rid of the stuff that does not add value, so that I can focus on the stuff that does. And essentially, that's the crux of it. We've done a lot of work lately. So I've become very excited about the bridge of this new technology and AI agents and that. And previously, we were kind of like bound, because we weren't necessarily technical. I can't code. I can't go build cool applications. If I come up with an idea, I have to convince someone to pay for it, or I've got to convince a developer to work with me. All of a sudden, I don't have to do that anymore. There's a mountain of applications that many people have available to them that they can automate many things in their life. The simplest one is meeting notes. I mean, I don't know how we lived without Copilot. Does anyone remember those times 3 months ago when we didn't have Copilot or didn't have note-taking apps? Because now all of a sudden all our notes are taken for us. Actions are in there. And it makes life easier. There's a lot of time spent writing notes for meetings. Yes, you can't just take what's in AI and send it out to someone. There's still some work in it, but it does a lot of those automation tasks for us. And what does that do? Spot on what James has said over there. Back to the root of BA work. We now don't have to worry about taking the notes, because taking the notes wasn't the important thing. Running the session was the important thing. Having the meaningful conversations. Now I don't have to spend an hour after that meeting taking those notes, putting it together, documenting it, diagramming it, put the context in there, get all these cool things, and then send it out to people. Now I have an hour free after the meeting to go and take it easy and have a nap, I'm assuming. And there's many other examples of that. I mean, what we've been experimenting with lately is automation within Jira and Confluence. Jira's got a massive new agentic function called Rover out now. Absolutely amazing. What we're busy building, it'll be released next week, is an agent that helps our BAs. We've got a team of, I think, 16 BAs in our team. And those 16 BAs are all writing stories, and it's impossible to keep up with what stories are being written. How do we know the quality of those stories? We can't have people check every single story people write. But now what we can do is we can build a little agent, and we've done it, that has a set of criteria that'll check requirements and just give advice to that BA. And this agent actually reaches out to the BA over Teams and says, hey, I've just reviewed your requirement. We've run it through some criteria. Here are some notes that we get it. Yes, it doesn't get it always right. It doesn't replace a human, but it helps us. We forget one of the other cool agents that we've just built. We want to categorize all our user stories so that we can store them nicely in folders and reference them well later. So we built a capability model. And with that capability model, every user story someone writes, the AI agent will read that story and decide what capability it belongs to. And then we train it, and it gets better. But now all of a sudden we can go and see, hey, let me see all the requirements, user stories that belong to this capability. Search and indexing becomes a lot easier. So there's all these little bits and pieces that we can get involved in, and we don't have to wait for a developer to do it. We can get our hands dirty on it. Again, because we remove the stuff that actually doesn't necessarily add value in isolation, and we focus on the things that do. Our core skill, which is the analysis. And what is analysis? Analysis, the word means to break down. And we're able to break down very complex things into very simple things. You know, I liked a colleague in South Africa, Christelle, calls it, we bring clarity to chaos. That's 100% what a BA does. Projects in turmoil, people don't know what they're doing. We don't know what value we're adding. The BAs are doing this, the developers are doing this. We're not seeing business value. Come in, the BA brings that clarity. Okay, let's bring it back to the board. Let's understand the problem. Let's understand what we're solving for. And I see a lot of great comments over here. I mean, Adrian mentioning cybersecurity. The funniest thing happened to me with our automation is our information security team didn't realize that Atlassian had published the new Rover agent to everyone who's got Jira and Confluence access, and now they are checking our agents to make sure that they're actually valid. But there's flaws in it, because it can, from the agent, it can email out to private email addresses. I work at a bank. You can't just email stuff out of stuff with your customer information and things like that. So information security has become probably the most critical thing. And I know, I mean, you've got Bindu in the UK, and she's really big on the information security and the role that BAs can play in that. It's becoming a massive thing, because agentic AI, you've got to be very careful. People can do reverse prompt engineering to get into your, what's it called, prompt injection to get into your applications from external, because essentially you've got this algorithm that's running masses of data, and you can say something to it, then it misunderstands it, and it can all of a sudden start infiltrating your data. cybersecurity becoming such a big thing. And then we're seeing a big skill set shift, if you ask me. We see this is the traditional business, and I don't know if this is everyone's company, but what we see in South Africa and what I've seen in many other places in the world is you have few people at the top, few more people at the middle, and the bulk of your workforce is sitting at that entry level. And I'm not saying, I say entry level, not necessarily skill level. They might be highly skilled at an entry level, but there's a lot of people sitting there. And your entry level people get managed by mid level, who get who get managed by top level. And what we're seeing is the shift towards more diamond shape. And what companies are wanting to do, what Microsoft is trying to do, with all those levels, they want to shake up the side of thing and say, well, we need entry level people. We need people to come in, because you'll never have mid level and top level people if you don't have entry level. But we want to make sure that many of our people are in that mid level. And when I say mid level, people that are standalone, they don't need supervision, they get stuff done, they know what they're doing, they are hands on, they understand technology, they understand. They can really get their hands dirty. And I'm assuming many of the people on this call are those kind of people that want to upskill themselves, understand technology, understand the way the world is working. And I don't want to spend too much time, so can I elaborate what I mean by that? Petra, you're going to have to give me a little bit more than that. Is that to me? This is for Robert. Robert's going to keep you busy for a while. Going to keep you busy for a long time there. But with the skill mapping, what we say is we'll take our team and we'll rate them on their skills, and we'll say, okay, well, and this is what we actually did for every single one of our team members. We said, let's look at their job level. So this is what out of 5 what they are. Your CEO being a 5, everyone else being a 4, 3, 2, 1. The level you are actually employed to be. But that doesn't necessarily mean, we've all met people who are punching above their weight, and we've met people who are punching below their weight. They are a job level 4, but they're performing at a 3. And if you look at the skills mapping, when you look at an individual, they might come in at a 4, but their technical skills proficiency is also at a 4, same level as what we're expecting them to be. Their quality of work is what we expect them. But hey, this guy's or person is really good at solving problems. They solve problems at a level higher than what we expect for their role. Their communication skills are not so great. Maybe their collaboration is not as great. Maybe their reliability is not so great. Their adaptability, however, very good. So you don't get individuals who are necessarily, they are 4 in everything they do. You hire them at a job level 4, and they operate in every aspect of their job at that level. All of us have our things we're good at and the things we're not. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to look at our team and say, we're expecting you to be at a 4, but actually, if you look at this, and this is don't check my maths because I don't know if it's 100% right, but we said, well, let's weight our level. We expect this person in this example to be a 4, and actually they're a 4.2 because we had a weighted category, and we said, well, let's average this out and see what it is. And this person we believe is performing at a 0.2 against what we're expecting. So that's where we kind of expect everyone to be a little bit better than what we hire them at. And we wanted to do this in our whole team in order to understand that skill set and that skill shift that we needed to get to. And when you just looked at skill levels, it kind of looked like this, which if you look at it, it kind of looks like a triangle shape. There's a lot of people at that 1 level at skill. But when we brought in this adjusted rating, when we started to take other people's other qualities into account, other than their job, their ability to influence others, their ability to motivate team members, their ability to they worked really, really hard. We started to see a definite shift towards that bottom end. And there was a lot less people sitting on the higher. And we did this not to say to people, we need to get these people out. We did this because we wanted to identify where our weak areas were, not just with our people, but ourselves as well. And a little bit of a secret, this is mine, that was done. Something like my communication skills aren't the greatest. And it sounds weird for me to say that to an audience. I'm supposed to be communicating to you right now, but you have to also do some introspection and see what your strong points are. That's not necessarily my strong point, but I have great adaptability. And that overall maybe evens me out a bit. So we did this for the entire team, including ourselves. The team didn't necessarily see it, but we then were able to go and say, this is what the kind of training interventions, the kind of support we needed to provide, the opportunities we need to provide to people to move us into that sort of more diamond shape. I've got to be very careful when I talk about football in the UK. First of all, I've got to call it football and not soccer. And you've got to be. I lived in the UK for 2 years, and I was told the only thing my grandmother ever told me when I went there. She said, never ever wear a football shirt and walk anywhere, because you don't know when you're going to get attacked when you're in the wrong neighborhood and you're wearing the wrong shirt in the wrong pub. Just don't do it. The only shirts I'll ever wear is my Springbok rugby shirts. But I think it might be too soon for any English rugby fans at the moment. But we're talking about, how we shift perspectives. And I'm assuming on this call, everyone knows who this guy is. I actually used this exact slide for my presentation when I did it in the US, and half the room didn't know who he was. I learned to read the room now, read the room and pick a sport that people understand in that country. But if you don't know who this is Paul Scholes. I'm not going to tell you who I support as a football team just because you're going to judge me, and I feel like it's very dangerous. But one of the things about Paul Scholes that really gets to me is he will be remembered as one of the greats, in my opinion. But he wasn't necessarily the best athlete in the world. If you look at someone like Ronaldo is phenomenal. He eats well, his physique is perfect, everything he does is perfect, he trains hard, he does everything. But he's a person on his own. And the thing that gets me about Paul Scholes is not him in isolation, but the impact he has had on others. So put him in a team and he makes other people shine. Paul Scholes makes Ronaldo shine because he's in the background, he works hard, he gets stuff done. Yes, he's phenomenal, but he enables other people. And I think that's an underlying skill that I think is going to be something that we need to keep in mind in the future. And to me, it's simple maths. On my own, I can do 1 unit of work. Maybe if you're really good, you 1.5 units of work. But if I can impart some of my knowledge or some of my skill set or some of my guidance onto 3 people, all of a sudden I can do 4 units of work. My 1 unit and their 3 units. Or not saying that they're doing my work, but although that would be quite nice. But my point is, you in isolation can't change the world, but you can influence others. And I think that is an underlying skill set of business analysts that we don't get. We think that our job is to take the requirements and do our magic in a little box over here, and we can't tell you how we do our magic. We keep it to ourselves and we move forward, because that's how I'm employed. I stay employed because I'm really good at what I do. But to me, it's changing that mindset to say, well, actually don't hold that knowledge yourself. Show someone else that knowledge. And we've seen this work really well in our teams. When we learn something, I figured out how to do an agentic AI solution using Rovo. I won't keep it to myself. I'll show someone next to me. Because now my knowledge, the information I have is now double as powerful. I can add twice as much value. And yes, it's not directly through me, but it's through the person that I've shown. And that can be infectious, because that person can show someone else, and all of a sudden you've developed skill sets within an organization. So I think I use this guy as an example because of his influence on others. And I don't want to carry on for too much long, because I'd love some questions, but these are kind of the things you can do for teams. If we're talking from a leadership example, if you're in a lucky position of leadership, even if you're not in a formal leadership position, leadership isn't necessarily the fact that you manage someone. You can be in a leadership role just by being really good at what you're doing and being influential in your organization. But in general, when you want to empower teams and enable them to do all this new stuff, you give them the best. You make sure they have the best devices, the best technology, give them access to AI, give them access to the tools and the best of everything. Give them opportunities to learn. So don't just talk to your team and to people and make sure that all they're going to do is build the requirements. Give them the opportunities. Send them to a conference. Send them to the Black Metric training. Was that good, Adrian? make sure they get out there and they do the cool stuff, because that's how you're going to your team is going to go there. And then also lead by example. Make sure that you're doing what you say. It's very pointless that you're advocating certain things, but then don't necessarily do it yourself. Create exposure. It's good and well that you're sitting at a talk like this, and I get to talk to all of you, but where's my team doing it? You need to give them the exposure and the opportunities to do it. We try to do it in our teams, but you can do it in small ways. You have circles of influence in business analysis. We all have stakeholders that work really well with us. When you have a new member in the team, why aren't you introducing them to your network, exposing them to those people that you are exposed to, bringing people along with you? Empower decision making. Team members that make decisions in isolation and don't need to be handheld are great team members. Help remove barriers. It's something that as a leader you should be doing, removing barriers for other people, taking things out of their way, making their job easier. If you're in a leadership or help removing obstacles in their way, saying, this stakeholder is really difficult. I'll go help you deal with that so you can focus on the things that count. Elevating other people's profiles, very difficult to do, but if you work in a team where you have a lot of people around you, elevating those people around you actually elevates you. And then, this is an obvious one, but you kind of have to say it. We have to make sure that your teams and the places you work they've got psychological safety. People need to feel safe to fail, safe to do things that that experiment, try new things, build an agent that might not work, those kind of things. I'm just going to use a quick example of what I mean by elevating other people. Dubai, was not Dubai specifically, but the UAE recently allowed or paying for all their citizens to get Copilot Pro licenses, not Copilot, sorry, ChatGPT Pro licenses. I just thought that was quite interesting, because what they're basically saying is we give our people the best and we will see returns out of that. I can't imagine how the business case for that went, but just a really interesting concept. And then to sort of sum up the bits of the presentation, and yes, I've spoken a lot in the last 45 minutes, and I really want to sum up what actually the crux, the things that I would hope that you guys take out of this. We talk about hype, and I use this picture. I love it. I bet half of the UK doesn't love it, but Oxford Street, the day after Christmas, you've got that mad rush to the stores. For me, it's amazing. For you guys, you're probably like, I'll stay away from it like anything. But there's a big hype outside of the UK for the splendor of Christmas. I mean, I wait every year to see the John Lewis TV ad. It wasn't so great this year, but things like that. There's all this hype, and how do you go away from that? How do you ignore the hype and actually enjoy the good things? Because there's great messages in the John Lewis Christmas ads. The lights outside Harrods are absolutely amazing. It's an amazing place to be around this time of year. I know you guys all want to be where it's warm, and I want to be where it's cold, but we'll get over that one. But there's a lot of hype in it, but there's some value in it as well. And how do we focus more on the value than the hype? And I think this is a pretty obvious one. Get your hands dirty. And I don't mean go play with ChatGPT. I mean really get your hands dirty. So one of the things we did in our learning journey within our teams was to actually understand how machines learn. And it's absolutely fascinating. The cool thing is all the knowledge is it's free at the moment. You can get the knowledge wherever you want. I did a Microsoft course on machine learning, and I struggled. My wife had a good laugh at me because she's a lot smarter than I am, and she gets the maths. And the maths behind how machines learn is insane. And I don't really think I get it, but I get it a bit. Now when I type something into ChatGPT, I understand why it responds back how it responds. It's probabilities, it's models. You're learning about vector databases and how inferences happen. And I know all the good words, and I'll just say them all in a row, and maybe you'll think I'm smart with them, but that's the point, is really get into the detail of it, because to fully appreciate something and understand how to use it, I need to understand it. And so to me, my mindset changed when I understood how AI worked and how the technology worked. And I'm never going to be a mathematician. Trust me, my marks in maths will tell you that. But I'm most certainly not going to be a mathematician. But I now have a general understanding of it. And going as a BA, I think one of the very critical things is to step out of the BA world a little bit at the moment. Go look at other conferences, go to other webinars, go to other sessions, read other books, so we understand it. Because I can't walk into a room and not know what an LLM is. I can't walk into a room with a developer and not understand what machine learning is. Because if I do that, I've lost my audience straight away. I also need to be able to translate my understanding of the technology and how it works and what it can do to the business needs. If I don't understand it properly, I will throw the answer is going to be, it's just solve it with AI. That will be the answer to every problem. And I think the best BAs are the ones at the moment that can say, this is not a solution we need to solve with AI right now. Let's look at a different solution. And then this one I always laugh, think before you jump. And I only laugh about it because I preach to think before you jump, but my personality is different. And if you look at my wife and I, we're very, very different people. I get to a pool and or the sea and I jump in. She checks if there's rocks there. Hasn't gone too badly for me, but there'll be that day. There'll be that day that I jump in and the water's and there's rocks below and it's too shallow. And my nature is to jump into things. So I constantly have to think to myself, Ryan, don't do this, especially with the rise of technology, because it's exciting. And yes, Michelle, I don't think we could do that in the UK. Those pebbles on those beach would hurt me before I even got to there. But I need to consciously say, Ryan, think, because at this point in time, you might go wrong very quickly and very soon. And I think with AI now, you need to keep away from the hype and focus on those problem statements. And I mean, I'll do another shameless Adrian plug. The book isn't just on display here, but Problem Solver Now, it's a good reference guide for me. And I go back to it quite often because it talks about actually understanding a problem. We need to understand the problems we're solving. And yes, it takes a little bit longer. And there's this nice AI thing happening over here, and you want to jump into it, and you want to do it, and you want to go build the prompts, and you want to do it, and you can. In one day, we as I said, we were just in a hackathon. 2 days, guys have built stuff, coded stuff in 2 days that we can demo. You can have screens up and running. You can vibe code, but you can do all these cool things. But again, we need to be thinking about the problems. We need to make sure we're solving the right things. We need to articulate the value. Because if it costs £1,000 to solve the problem, but the problem but solving the problem only saved us £500, it's not worth it. And potentially the problem didn't need to be solved. We need to look at the real problem and make sure we're solving it correctly. And then the last point over here is to be cautiously curious. You need to be curious. You need to want to do stuff. Don't become obsessed with it. Don't be that person who doesn't jump into it because you don't quite know. You've got to go there. You've got to go try these things, try new things, new technology, new tools that you've got out there. Play around with the technology. Talk to people about the technology. But at the same time, understand what you're doing. And I mean, the age-old thing, none of this stuff is new. We need to be looking at data a lot more, making sure we're informed. When we implement an agentic solution, the one I spoke about earlier, we actually went and did a pilot with it. And in that pilot, we thought the success rate would be really high. The success rate was less than 10%. Does that mean we failed? Not necessarily. I think if we had scaled beyond our pilots of a couple of customers, we would have failed. But we didn't. We tested it. We now have the data. We're now changing how the solution works. And a really good example of how we changed it, we didn't know the timing that a message being sent to someone, what time is the best time to send it? Would people respond at different times during the day? And we learned something from our pilot that now we can go implement in our requirements. But we could only do that because data was the kind of the first thing we thought about. We thought about, okay, we've got to get this out, but when it goes out, can we articulate the data, the business case? Can we check the how many people did this, where they fell off? And we had that data built in before you even went live. And that data becomes a constant cycle. And then with this cautiously curious, I mean, I'm not a reader. I read very, very few books. To me, reading a book is usually it's the magazines that have lots of pictures. Those are the ones I like. But it's something I'm forcing myself to because there's some really great knowledge out there. And learning from other people and being, reading about what other companies are doing. So a lot of the AI books at the moment that I've ended up reading, listening to books, Petra, I've tried. I usually do it on a run, and like 3 minutes into the run, I'm like, oh, what book is that again? So yeah, I mean, it's. I think everyone's got their own version, something that works for them. Some people read, some people don't read, but I'm forcing myself to read. And the reason the books at the moment around AI, what they actually talk about is the use cases, more about the use cases than the tech, what guys have done with it. And it's just got me excited to the possibilities. It allows me to be curious in what the world's doing, but we still need to be realists. We work many of us in financial institutions. A lot of BAs around the world work in financial institutions, and highly governed environments. Things don't move overnight. You can't build an AI agent well, you can build it, but I mean, it'd be very unwise to go build something, publish it, get it out there into the middle of the world. The risks is too high. The risks are too high. So that brings me to the end of the presentation. I think we've got 6 minutes left, if I'm correct, Adrian.
You are. Well, I mean, first of all, I think a massive virtual round of applause for Ryan for a really interesting, thought-provoking, informative session. I can see the virtual round of applause is floating up on the screen there. And yeah, let's take a few questions. Um, our first question comes from Emily, who
Hmm.
asks, related to the questions in the Zoom chat, thinking about ROI, what is the cost of maintaining AI in a company? It
Yeah,
may provide value, but are people not thinking about the technical debt?
100%. But before I address that question, one of the best news things from this week is that I'm actually going to get to see Emily at BBC next year.
Yes,
I've never
yeah.
met her face to face, so I'm looking forward to that. But great question. I think the difference with AI at the moment is that in the past, you would deploy a solution and the solution was relatively stable. Um, yes, it's a little bit of support that needs to happen on it, but the code doesn't change, the picture doesn't change, the thing doesn't change. Now we're deploying something that changes every single day. The models grow, the models learn, the models train different things. You cannot just leave an AI model out there in the world going. You now need to think, while you might be quick to deliver, the delivery might be 3 weeks. You need to cater for constant innovation on it. And it's not just innovation, it's constant maintenance. New models are coming out. You need to check it. You need to check that the LLMs that are learning every single day that they are not doing different things. So you have to implement new things. Governance needs to be in place. Safeguards. What's very common is agents that check agents. Like you have an agent that does one thing and then another agent that checks that it's done that one thing properly and potentially another agent on top of that. So it is incredibly important not to budget these days that the end of the project is the point you deliver the thing to production. That's not the end. That's just the beginning. Um,
Yeah, that's really interesting, Ryan. As you were talking there, I was thinking about like benefits management and how generally that's done really badly in many organizations. And actually what you're talking about there really reinforces that benefits management is really, really key because if you're going to
mm,
actually have to measure way beyond going into production.
and
Um,
continually measure, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Excellent. So following on from that, the next question is it possible that BAs will evolve to be therapists? Stakeholders just want to be heard. I can't tell you how many client job interviews I've been to where the prospective client poured their heart out at me even before they gave me the contract. That's amazing. I love that.
I mean, I don't have a great answer for that question, but I mean, there are multiple sides to this. There's the bad side, whereas in many instances, LLMs have become quite personable. So people are talking to them like they should be a therapist or a friend, and it's led to, many people know of some of the bad cases where it's led to
Yes.
bad things happening, and the LLMs have to be trained not to. But I presume that wasn't as serious a question as that, but But I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm using ChatGPT to try to teach me French in the mornings at the moment. It's becoming more in our life, and I think that to me that's a lot of the future of the tech is that it's going to be someone that works side by side you, not someone I call on every now and again. And in the future, I think of it. You're really seeing some features within some of the apps where, as I'm talking to you, if I go and say, oh, they, South Africa's got 49 billion people in it, and the thing's fact checking me on the side. It's there constantly in our lives. So it's part of the way we work, not something I call when I need it. Um, and I almost understand what Michelle's saying there in French. That's how great my French is at the moment.
So très bien, that's very good. I believe from my GCSE French days, but fantastic or magnifique, I suppose we should say. Well, thank you very much, Ryan, for a really thought-provoking session. That's all the time we have for today. We could continue talking for much longer about this. If you are still on the line, please do hold on just for a few more minutes. I've got a few community announcements to add. But before I do that, Ryan, how is the best way if people want to connect with you, stay in touch? What's the best channel?
LinkedIn, I think that's the easiest one for me. And if anyone is still on X or Twitter, I'm there as well. But yeah, LinkedIn, I think is the easiest. And I'd love to chat to people. Anyone wants to have a chat around this, let's chat.
Fantastic. And I've just popped your link to your profile in the chat there. So do connect with Ryan. It's always great. That's like another virtual round of applause so people know that what they've said has really resonated with you. Just a few community announcements. So there probably will be a January webinar, but it's not quite nailed down yet. So watch your inboxes for that. However, we do have the February webinar already announced. It's going to be called Mental Monsters, Name and Tame Your Limiting Beliefs with Helen Holder. And I think this is a really interesting one because, I think most, if not many, slash all BAs or good BAs, we've all had those sort of mental monsters, imposter syndrome, whatever we want to call it from time to time. And this was a session that was at the BA Conference Europe that I was, again, really selfishly, I was unable to make it. So I asked Helen to do it again so I could see it. But then, hey, it means it's out there for other ones as well, for other people to see. And then finally, of course, if you aren't aware of BA Digest, I really hope you are. But if you're not, BA Digest is a quarterly PDF magazine, which you can just go to badigest.link, download the entire back catalogue, and the next the next edition will be out in late January. So all that's left for me to say is a massive thank you, whether you tuned in live or indeed are watching the recording. If you are tuning in live, then of course happy holidays because we're approaching that season as well. And Ryan, thanks once again, and look forward to seeing you again soon. So take care. Bye for now.
Thanks everyone. Cheers.